We have to leave now.
Calm down. Tell me what happened.
They're coming for us.
The snow fell without mercy that evening, thick white flakes drifting from a silent gray sky as if the heavens themselves had grown tired of the world below. The small frontier town of Willow Creek stood buried beneath the storm's cold breath, its wooden buildings creaking against the wind, its streets empty except for the occasional hurried soul seeking warmth. It was the kind of winter that tested a person's strength, the kind that separated the strong from the broken. And standing alone in that storm was a woman who had nothing left but hope. Her name was Eliza Harper. Her boots were worn thin, soaked through from hours of walking. Her coat, once respectable, now clung to her like a heavy shroud, dripping with melted snow. Strands of dark hair stuck to her pale cheeks, her lips trembling from cold and fear alike. She had not eaten in 2 days, and her hands shook as she clutched the small cloth bag that held everything she owned. She had come to Willow Creek with one purpose, to find work. Not charity, not pity, work. But every door had closed. The bakery owner had shaken his head without looking at her twice. The general store had claimed they had no need for extra help. The boarding house already had more hands than it could pay. With each refusal, the cold bit deeper into her bones, and the quiet dread inside her chest grew heavier. By the time the storm reached its fiercest howl, she found herself standing before the largest ranch house on the edge of town, a sturdy place of timber and stone, smoke rising from its chimney like a promise of warmth. She hesitated. Pride told her to walk away. Desperation made her knock. The door opened to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered cowboy with steady gray eyes and a face weathered by sun, wind, and years of solitude. His name was Daniel Carter, though most in Willow Creek simply called him Carter, a man known for his honesty, his quiet strength, and his distance from others. He studied the trembling woman before him without speaking. Snow swirled between them. "I'm looking for work," Eliza finally said, her voice fragile but determined. "Any kind of work. Cleaning, cooking, anything." Daniel's gaze softened slightly as he noticed the frost clinging to her lashes and the exhaustion etched into her expression. He stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze." Warmth wrapped around her the moment she crossed the threshold. A fire roared in the stone hearth, casting flickering gold across wooden floors and simple furnishings. The scent of coffee and burning pine filled the air. For a moment, she simply stood there, overwhelmed by the comfort she had nearly forgotten existed. Daniel handed her a dry cloth. "You won't last long out there," he said quietly. She wiped her face, trying to steady herself. "I don't want charity." He watched her closely, seeing something beyond her desperation, a fierce dignity refusing to surrender. "I didn't offer charity," he replied. Silence stretched between them as the storm raged outside. Finally, he spoke words that would change both their lives. "I don't need a worker," Daniel said slowly. "I need a wife." The words struck like thunder. Eliza stared at him, certain she had misunderstood. But his expression held no mockery, no cruelty, only a strange sincerity shaped by loneliness. Her first instinct was fear. Her second was anger. "I am not for sale," she whispered. Daniel nodded calmly. "I know," he explained then. About the empty years since his family had passed, about the ranch that demanded more than one pair of hands, about the silence that filled his nights. He spoke not of ownership, but of partnership. Not of control, but of building a life together. "You'd have a home," he said simply. "Food, safety, respect, and a choice. Always a choice." Eliza's heart pounded. The offer sounded impossible, even absurd. Yet she could not deny the honesty in his voice. He asked for no immediate answer, only that she stay the night until the storm passed. That evening, seated at his table with a warm meal before her, she experienced something she had not known in months: peace. Daniel spoke little, yet his quiet presence carried a steadiness that comforted her trembling spirit. But her past weighed heavily upon her heart. She had once trusted promises before. She had once believed in a future that vanished like smoke. And trust, once broken, does not easily mend. That night, sleep came slowly. The fire crackled softly as she lay beneath clean blankets, staring into darkness, wrestling with fear and possibility. Could a stranger's offer truly hold salvation? Or was it simply another illusion waiting to shatter? Morning arrived with fragile sunlight shimmering across untouched snow. The world outside looked new, as if the storm had washed away yesterday's sorrow. Daniel prepared breakfast quietly, giving her space. "I won't force your decision," he said. "You're free to leave." Freedom. The word echoed painfully. Freedom had brought her hunger, cold, and endless wandering. Yet here stood a man offering not a cage, but a chance. She studied his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the patience in his posture, the loneliness he did not hide. "I don't know how to be a wife," she admitted. Daniel's voice was gentle. "Neither do I know how to be a husband." Something in his honesty broke through the walls around her heart. And so she stayed. The weeks that followed were not easy. Trust does not bloom overnight, and love does not grow from words alone. Their life together began with awkward silence, cautious steps, and unspoken fears. Eliza worked tirelessly around the ranch, determined to earn her place. She cooked, cleaned, and learned the rhythms of the land. Daniel, in turn, treated her with unwavering respect, never demanding more than she willingly gave. Slowly, a fragile bond formed. She noticed the kindness in his smallest actions, the way he ensured the house was warm before she woke, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he never touched her without permission. And Daniel saw her strength, the resilience that carried her through hardship, the quiet courage behind her gentle eyes, the warmth she brought into his once empty home. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came change. Laughter began to echo through the ranch. Shared meals turned into shared stories. Silence transformed into companionship. One evening, as golden sunset painted the horizon, Eliza found herself watching Daniel mend a fence, his movements steady, his focus unwavering. A strange warmth filled her chest, not gratitude, but something deeper. Belonging. For the first time in years, she felt safe. And safety, she realized, was the soil where love quietly takes root. Yet every story worth telling carries trials. One day, a wealthy landowner arrived with accusations, claiming Eliza as a runaway servant bound by contract. Fear returned like a shadow from her past, threatening to tear away the life she had built. But Daniel stood before her without hesitation. "She is not property," he declared. "She chooses her own life." The confrontation shook Willow Creek, but truth prevailed. The false claim dissolved, and with it vanished the last chains of Eliza's past. That night, overwhelmed by emotion, she confessed the depth of her gratitude and her growing love. Daniel's response was not grand or dramatic. He simply took her hand and said, "You were never a burden. You were always my blessing." In that quiet moment, beneath a sky filled with stars, their partnership became something more, a union of two wounded souls who had found healing in one another. Years passed, and the ranch flourished. What began as a desperate plea for work became a life filled with purpose, respect, and love. Their home became a place of refuge for travelers, the hungry, and the lost, for they never forgot the pain of loneliness or the cruelty of closed doors. And whenever snow began to fall, Eliza would stand by the window, remembering the night she knocked on a stranger's door and found not just shelter, but destiny. And so, dear viewer, remember this powerful truth. Sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive disguised as desperate moments. Sometimes the door you knock on in fear becomes the home where your heart finally rests. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in love born from kindness and hope rising from hardship, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, support more powerful stories like this, and become part of a community that believes every soul deserves a second chance. Because somewhere, even in the coldest storm, a new beginning is waiting.